turn off the light and step into the pit. The real horror begins when the eyes close. And there's no escape. Give me your purest fear, for now I am all the shadows that surround you. Come, follow me. Take my hand. I will lead you to the gallows.
My name is Sebastián Prado, and I work as a security guard for an agency that handles properties across the region. I've been doing this job for years, used to long, lonely nights and empty buildings. But what happened to me in Pachía? I'll never forget it. It all started when my supervisor gave me a special assignment. I had to travel to Pachía, a small town a few kilometers outside the city of Tacna. Even at night, the summer heat was heavy. My job was simple: guard an old church for a week, while it remained closed to the public. They told me the town's priest had died of a heart attack just a few days earlier. The church needed protection until a new priest arrived. By the time I got to the town, the sun was setting behind the dry hills, painting the sky in a pink hue that reminded me of blood. The adobe houses looked weathered by time, with small windows that resembled half-closed eyes watching me as I drove through the dusty streets. Pedro Gomez was waiting for me in front of the church. He was a stocky man in his 50s, with calloused hands and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He wore a wrinkled white shirt and dark slacks that had clearly seen better days. "Sebastián, right?" he said, reaching out to shake my hand. "I'm Pedro. I manage the church. Glad you made it." The church was stunning, medium-sized, but with colonial architecture that told a long story. The walls rose high, with stained glass windows that caught the fading sunlight in golden and blue hues. The heavy wooden doors were carved with religious figures that seemed to shift and breathe in the twilight shadows. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Pedro said, noticing my awe. "Father Martinez cared for her for 30 years before." "Well, before what happened?" Inside, the air was cool and filled with the scent of incense and melted wax. Tall columns stretched toward a vaulted ceiling painted with religious frescoes whose colors had faded with time. The dark wooden pews were perfectly aligned, and the main altar gleamed with golden ornaments that caught the flickering candlelight. "You can sleep in the sacristy," Pedro told me, guiding me to a side room. "There's a small bed in there. Father Martinez used to sleep there when he had to stay late after a ceremony." The room was austere: a narrow bed, a crucifix on the wall, and a small window that looked out over the town's cemetery. Pedro handed me the Kisa-heavy bundle of rusted metal that jingled with every movement. "If you need anything, my house is just 2 blocks away," he said. "Rest well, Sebastián." The first night passed without incident. I did my rounds every 2 hours, checking doors and windows. The church at night had a strange kind of peace, like time had stopped within its walls. The only sounds were my footsteps on the stone tiles and the occasional creak of the old wooden beams. But the second night, everything changed. It was around 3 in the morning when I decided to do one last round before trying to get a bit of sleep. The heat of the day had given way to a dry, creeping cold that seeped in through the cracks around the windows. I had my flashlight with me, though the votive candles offered just enough light to move through the aisles. I was heading toward the main altar when something made me stop. A sound like a rope under tension, slowly stretching. I looked up and Dear God, what I saw made my skin crawl. Hanging from the ceiling, directly above the altar, was Father Martinez. His body swayed gently, a noose tight around his neck. His eyes were wide open and glassy, staring straight at me. His face was swollen and tinged a bluish purple, a horrifying contrast against his black cassock.
Don't forget, God doesn't save his children. Where is your God now?
I screamed and stumbled backward, tripping over one of the pews. My flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled across the floor, casting dancing shadows that made the figure seem to move. When I finally grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the ceiling, there was nothing. The ceiling was empty. No rope, no body. Just the dark wooden beams and the faded frescoes. My hands were shaking as I stepped outside. The desert night air hit my face, but it did nothing to calm my racing heart. Had it been a hallucination, exhaustion, or something else? I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat in the sacristy, my back pressed against the wall, watching every shadow and listening to every sound. The desert wind howled through the roof tiles, creating a constant moan that set my nerves on edge. The next day, when Pedro stopped by to check in, I decided to ask him about Father Martinez's death. A heart attack, you said? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, poor man. They found him in bed, at home. His heart gave out, Pedro answered. But something about the way he said it felt forced. Why do you ask? He added. Just curious, that's all. Must have been tough for the town to lose their priest. Pedro nodded. He stuck around a bit longer, making small talk, and then left. That afternoon, I called a friend back in the city who works at the civil registry. I asked him to look into Father Martinez's death. What he told me chilled me to the bone. It's strange, Sebastian. There's no autopsy report. For a natural death, especially of a public figure, like a priest, there's always an autopsy. And another thing, I spoke to the medical examiner. He said he never received the body. What does that mean? I asked, though deep down I already knew. It means someone didn't want the real cause of death to be investigated. That night, I returned to the church with a knot in my stomach. The shadows seemed heavier, the sounds more disturbing. Every creak of the wood startled me. Every whisper of the wind made me turn my head. I decided to investigate on my own. Over the next few days, while on duty, I spoke to some of the locals. Most of them were reluctant to talk about Father Martinez, but one old woman, Doña Carmen, who lived near the church and had been making my lunch, told me something that made me question everything. That Pedro Gomez and the father didn't get along, she whispered, glancing around like she was afraid someone might hear. They fought about money. Pedro said the priest was pocketing the donations and not reporting them properly. Donations? I asked. Yes, I saw them go into the church that afternoon, the same day the father died. That information deeply unsettled me. I started paying closer attention to Pedro whenever he came to check in. If I asked about Father Martinez, he'd dodge the question or change the subject. On the fourth night, the apparition came back. This time, he wasn't hanging from the ceiling. He was standing beside the altar, pointing a finger at me. His mouth was moving as if trying to speak, but no sound came out. Just that awful gesture pointing over and over again. When I blinked, he was gone. On the fifth night, I decided to go through the church records. In the priest's office, almost hidden, I found some donation logs. The numbers didn't add up. There were huge discrepancies between what was reported and what should have been in the church's accounts. Then I found something that made my hands go cold.
Seek the truth, and you'll find that the righteous shall not earn salvation, and neither will you wretched little filth.
A letter from Father Martinez, addressed to the bishop, dated the very day he died. In it, he directly accused Pedro Gomez of stealing church funds. The letter had never been sent.
What are you doing here?
Pedro's voice made me jump. I'd been so absorbed in reading that I hadn't heard him come in. He was standing in the office doorway with a look I had never seen on him before. His eyes shone with a mix of anger and desperation. Pedro, I began. Just what? Just snooping where you shouldn't be? His voice had turned cold, threatening. I knew you were gonna be a problem the moment you showed up. I tried to stand, but Pedro moved quicker. He pulled a knife from his belt, its blade flashing under the lamp's light. Father Martinez was nosy too, he said, stepping toward me. He asked too many questions. Pedro, you don't have to do this, I said, backing up until I hit the wall. Do you know how much money passed through this church? How much that old holy fool wasted on charity? He spat the word with contempt.
I was the one doing the real work, the one who kept this place running.
He lunged. We struggled. He was strong, but panic gave me strength I didn't know I had. The knife grazed my leg, slicing through my pants and leaving a sharp, burning pain. I managed to shove him into the desk and ran for the door. My footsteps echoed through the empty church as he chased after me, screaming curses. You can't leave, he shouted. His voice faded as I bolted to my car. I started the engine with trembling hands, me sweaty fingers slipping on the keys. The motor coughed a few times before roaring to life. In the rearview mirror, I saw Pedro stumble out of the church, knife still in hand. White shirt soaked with sweat, I floored it. Speeding out of Pachía, like the devil himself was on my tail. The road back to Tacna had never felt so long. Every shadow along the roadside made me think Pedro had caught up. Every sound the car made felt like footsteps getting closer. My leg was bleeding, soaking the car seat. The pain was intense, but not as strong as the fear eating away at me. I knew Pedro had murdered Father Martinez, had hanged him in his own church, and now I was the only one who knew the truth. I made it to Tacna that night. I went straight to the police and told them everything I discovered. But when they got to Pachía, Pedro was gone. The church was locked up. The keys lay on the floor of the altar. They never found him. That was months ago, and I still have nightmares. I dream of Father Martinez hanging from the ceiling, pointing at me with that accusing finger. I dream of Pedro chasing me through endless hallways, the knife glinting in the dark. Was it the Father Spirit trying to show me the truth? Or just my mind processing the horror I had uncovered? And I wonder, is Pedro Gomez still out there, waiting to silence the last witness to his crime? Maybe Father Martinez finally found peace. But me? I'm still trapped in that hell of doubt and terror. Because sometimes, the truth is more terrifying than any ghost.
There is no divine justice. There is only blood, death, and despair. Remember this. I am now all your shadows, and I will lead you to the gallows.